let's get into Bitcoin Treasury companies. How do you see the development of institutional adoption in Bitcoin, but also like the contrast between US and UK and Europe in general?
So I can start on the story of the Bitcoin Treasury company. So in August 2020, obviously MicroStrategy started their journey. $1 billion market cap. I heard of Michael Saylor in the 2000 tech boom that he took his company down 95%. So when he got into Bitcoin, I was like, a bit nervous. But in the UK, retail are banned from any form of crypto or Bitcoin ETF, ETN, or any exchange traded product on the market. There was a time where the FCA the Financial Conduct Authority, we did have access to ETFs, ETNs, but they banned them around January of 2021. They were saying there's high risk, market volatility, abuse in the market, inadequate understanding from retail on Bitcoin and crypto. So there was no exposure to Bitcoin unless you could buy spot on Coinbase or any exchange. But obviously we know how difficult it is relatively for the layman to buy it and hold it and custody it correctly. So everyone then has access, or like my pension, for example, is sitting in the NASDAQ 100 or Tesla or whatever it is. And then MicroStrategy comes along and you're like, why not? Don't know. Could just fail, but this guy likes Bitcoin. So do I. Put it all in. So that was pretty much the trend, that anyone that was in the UK did it. And now I know of hundreds of billions of pounds sitting in these ISAs and SIPs that are sitting in MicroStrategy. So obviously it's done like a 3,000% return and it's been incredible. And then like every week I get a message from Hargreaves Lansdown, who are the UK's biggest broker. I think there's £1 trillion of assets sitting in SIPs. So SIPs are a pension that you can control yourself. And then ISAs are, I don't know what they stand for, but that's, again, your own investment pot. And so there's £1 trillion sitting in there. They've all moved to MicroStrategy because that's the only real Bitcoin exposure you can get. And every week on Hargreaves Lansdown, you can see MicroStrategy was the most purchased stock, like continuously, just outperforms Nvidia, outperforms everything. So the UK retail market is starved for growth, similar to Japan. And then a few years later, so in January of this year, I joined Coincilium as an advisor, who are also listed on Hargreaves Lansdown, but they're on the Aquis market. So you've got the LSE, the London Stock Exchange, which is the main market. You then have AIM and then the Aquis market. So there are now a couple of UK Treasury companies that have done it, and we're seeing huge volume. Like Aquis is known for no liquidity, no volume, and Coincilium has pretty much broken trading volume records. So it's been amazing to see. So we're now starting to see, because MicroStrategy is at an inflection point where it's kind of stagnated, and we can go into why it's stagnated, but we're now seeing rotation from MicroStrategy into the smaller cap stocks that are now having Bitcoin exposure, because retail still can't get access to an ETF. So even if BlackRock wanted to list an ETF in the UK, they can't. There is a nuance. If you are an accredited investor, so like you have a certain amount of assets under management, you earn a certain wage, I think you do a certain amount of trades a year, you do get deemed as an accredited investor. Therefore, you could buy an ETF. But for retail, which is 95% of the population in the UK, can't. So now we're seeing all of this rotation coming into Coincilium. And it just shows the level of incompetence. And I say incompetence and corruption are very blurred lines with these regulated entities. And if they just allowed for an ETF accredited by a BlackRock or a Fidelity, you wouldn't have any of these so-called huge multiple premiums to MNAVs, anything like that. But the FCA don't really understand Bitcoin, crypto. They don't understand the ecosystem. And it should get to a point where they're like, we need to hire experts. But when you look at the FCA's salary job descriptions, they're like 40, 50,000 pounds. And the cost of living crisis in the UK is insane. 40,000, 50,000 pounds can't get you very far. So you're not going to hire very good people. And it's that perpetual doom loop that you're just hiring really bad people that are going to make really bad decisions that make the inefficiencies in the market. And it's just a circle, and it's just a doom loop. So we found an arbitrage in the market, which works to our benefit. But you would like to see the UK really take on growth within the Bitcoin ecosystem.
It's fascinating to see because they're trying to ban Bitcoin ETFs in the UK. The only thing they're doing, they are not stopping it. They're just driving the innovation outside. So then the UK people are buying an American company, Strategy. It's a fascinating example.
Yes. So the nuance as well to this is, again, as a UK investor, I can't buy US ETFs. So I can't buy BlackRock ETF, IBIT, or Fidelity's FBTC. So yeah, all the money has to go offshore to US companies. It's insane. So again, Hargreaves Lansdown, you can see the top purchase stocks. They're all Nvidia, Tesla, any of the Magnificent Seven. It's just no one's buying UK companies. So we're starved for growth in our UK equities market. I think the FTSE 100 since 2008 has appreciated 20%. But now we're speaking to the brokers who are brokering our fundraising. So in the past, we did our first raise, and we're a small market cap. We're about £15 million. We've raised £5 million circa over the past 2 weeks. And the brokers have said this is the most amount of like exuberance they've seen in the market since 2008. So the brokers are delighted. And it shows that there is a huge demand for Bitcoin. And raising money is relatively easy as a Bitcoin treasury company. But again, you have the nuances with the flywheel effect, where Metaplanet essentially are almost a 24-hour investment cycle. They can raise 0% ordinary bonds in debt, and then they can go and buy Bitcoin. We have the nuances within the UK market that we have to navigate as well. So it's not as easy to raise money as opposed to the US market. The US market has a plethora of options, such as convertible debt, the ATM, share sales that you can sell shares into the market. The UK has that, but you're also unknown on the demand side of if you listed a bond, for example. So the UK market in terms of finances used to be the capital market for the world. Really understanding the UK market, it has deteriorated, and it is so hard to get that flywheel effect. But you can only do the best you can with the tools you have. And yeah, it's amazing. You see what the NASDAQ listed companies do in the US, and the volume and the market caps they can get to. Something you aspire to. You could potentially cross list. So yeah, we're very early in the journey, but I've said that the UK is an election cycle behind the US. So we have 4 years. So we're essentially 2020-ish kind of where the US were. So that's our arbitrage, and that's our momentum that we can pick up.
So wait, there's now just like one company that is publicly traded in the UK that has Bitcoin?
There's 6, but the market cap, I think, combined with the 6 is 300 million. Like it's tiny.
So not even half what was Strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. And some of them are only putting on Bitcoin on their balance sheet because it gives you that volume and liquidity, and that gets people to notice you. We've seen that with multiple American companies. So look, people are going to do a Bitcoin treasury as just shove it as a PR announcement. Hopefully it'll get our stock price up, get a bit of liquid trading going on, but then the market will see through it. So it's that consistent buyer, that consistent market signal to the market saying we're here, we're buyers every week, month, 2 months. And the market is smart enough, and it will understand who is a real player and who's not.
Yeah, it's also like when you see Similar Scientific, when you see Meta Planet, when you see Strategy, they are not only just buying, they are buying a good amount, and they're going to the Bitcoin conferences. They're really also interacting with the community. They're doing more than just like, hey, like posting a tweet, hey, we're buying Bitcoin now. We're a Bitcoin company now. Come to us, trade with us.
Yeah.
So doing a lot more than just like a small action.
And that takes time. I think that's a position that, as Coincilium, or not speaking on behalf of Coincilium, but from my view, that's probably somewhere that we want to get to down the road. But we're 2 weeks into our strategy, so it takes time. And look, we've got the experience and the capabilities of understanding the market really well. They were the first ever blockchain company to IPO in the world globally. They've had Bitcoin on the balance sheet since 2015. So they've survived 3 bear markets, which was one of the reasons I joined them, because I really believed in, they understood hedging downside risk. They knew how to, when a bear market eventually comes in the next cycle, they'll know how to manage it. So that gave me a lot of assurances. But yeah, it's one thing just buying, and then it's the next thing is creating the awareness and really honing in on your strategy.
You said UK is kind of 4 years, like 1 full year cycle behind of the election cycle behind the US. Is that generally or directionally also true for whole of Europe?
Well, there was actually an article today. So Jacoby, they're a Bitcoin ETF. They just got access to the retail market for Europe. They hold a small amount of AUM, but we're starting to see small breakthroughs within Europe. Again, yeah, Europe is the continent known for red tape and legal barriers and lawyers, and everything's very bureaucratic and slow. And it's very similar to the UK. So yeah, I think the UK and Europe are probably very close in how underexposed they are to Bitcoin. But what gives me hope is that you look at all the other investment classes or asset classes out there, and they're all performing terribly. Like real estate in the UK, which pretty much underpins the economy, on a real terms basis, is definitely down about 15-20% from the top. Nominal, yeah, it's also down. As I said, UK equities haven't performed for 20-25 years. So people and bonds are as bad as anything. A gilt crisis is on the horizon. So everyone is now questioning where to put their money. You can't leave it really in cash anymore because inflation's compounding at 15-20% a year. So gold is capital gains tax free in this country. It is considered money in this country. So a lot of it will go into gold, but I do expect Bitcoin becoming this mature, institutionalized, financialized asset now. We will see 1 to 3 to 5% of that money that should have gone into gold go into Bitcoin. And yeah, it's only around 78,000-80,000 pounds for one Bitcoin. So we're not even at 6 figures yet because the pound's quite strong relatively. So again, the room for growth in this country is huge for price appreciation.
It's super interesting to see the institutional adoption of Bitcoin. I talked to 3 different German-speaking Bitcoin exchanges, Bitcoin-only exchanges, and they all have a company side of things, so like for retail, but also for B2B, for companies wanting to buy Bitcoin, private companies in that sense. And when I talk to them and their lists of like how many companies there are out there that really want to buy Bitcoin and they're buying Bitcoin, and about half of them, or sometimes like more than half of them, have a policy of like, hey, you cannot tell anyone. We don't want anyone to know that we even have Bitcoin. We just think Bitcoin is a great asset, but we don't want to talk about it publicly. Do you see that also sometimes in the market in the UK, and what you're seeing of like a lot of companies want to do it, but like they're afraid of what might happen when they are outspoken about it?
Yeah, so I know multiple private limited companies that have thousands of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. They don't want to go public because they don't want to be known. I was at the MicroStrategy conference in April, May. Three CEOs came up to me, said they had literally about 1,500 to 2,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheets, but they don't want to go public. They didn't know what to do with it. How can they capitalize on that, on having such a robust balance sheet? So yeah, there is an issue of being public with Bitcoin. It's not always a great thing. So yeah, it has its advantages and disadvantages, but I think once the people can see with these, we're seeing a lot of SPACs, we're seeing a lot of reverse takeovers on the Nasdaq. I think we need to see a lot of success with them, not just pump and dumps. So if we can see these companies be successful as Bitcoin Treasury companies, then I think a lot more people will go public. But we're still very early on. The Bitcoin Treasury's website is great because you can track all these public companies, and it's growing at like 5-10 public companies pretty much a week. I think it was over 120 as of today. And it's grown like 30 companies in the past month, and you keep that number going. So I think Saylor wanted like in the next 12 months, like 500 or something. And I think that's quite possible. The higher the price goes. So yeah, it's definitely a trend that has just started.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.